Saga from Georgia. Chapter 4. In search of the heart and blood of the terrible wild pig. Committed as she was in her new mission, the young woman no longer remembered her previous adventures, as well as the predictions of the princess daughter of the Dragon King. The only things that hitherto constantly came to her memory were the fact that now she was very far from her father's house, and that often she had to meet the queen. The queen was an evil woman, who was used to seeing all her whims immediately satisfied, and to recognizing no obstacles to her desires. Then, thinking that the new treasurer was really a boy, she fell in love with him and wanted her feelings to be corresponded. But, as he showed no sign of interest, she started to use not only the craftiness, but also the strength, to take him to the annihilation. Once, going to the king, she said, "Dear husband, we have been married for many years and we don't have a child yet, and this causes me great disgust. But there is a possibility of my desire to come true. Last night, I saw in a dream an old man who said to me, 'The king must get you the heart and blood of the wild pig that so far no one has managed to kill. If he gets you that, you will have a child. So, dear husband, if you want to see me happy, satisfy my wish.' But I have a great doubt that your wish can be fulfilled," said the king. "As you well know, many others have already lost their lives trying to confront this wild pig. And there is no hope that there is still anyone really bold and willing to do that. And, if there is, the result will be the same, he will find death. But ask our treasurer to do it for me," she said. But it was with great irritation that the king answered, "How can you demand such a thing? Could I send one who is so faithful to me to a certain death? It will never happen." But the king's denial stoked even more the queen's evil intentions, who promised herself that, at any cost, her wish would be satisfied. But, by means of tricks and threats, she eventually led the king to yield to her demands. He then requested the presence of his new treasurer, and said to him, "My confident server, during the short time you have served me, you showed me not only loyalty but also honesty. And now, I feel very sad for having to ask you to carry out a mission as difficult as dangerous. As you well know, we don't have a child, and this causes the queen great sadness. But, if you could bring her the heart and blood of the terrible wild pig, whose ferocity and irresistibility you have certainly heard of, she could have a child. And that's why I requested your presence. Before you start your trip, request what is necessary, which will not be denied." Returning then to her room, the young woman started thinking and dropping the most bitter tears. But she remembered, immediately, of her kind and faithful horse, and ran into the stable. She hugged his neck and told him, sobbing, "My good horse, my confident friend, free me from this latest disaster, as you always did." The horse then replied excitedly, "There is no reason for this shedding of tears. Return to the queen quickly and ask him for 7 diamond daggers, a gold net for the heart and a silver cup for the blood. Once you are in possession of these 3 objects, return to me that we will go immediately." Days later, the 3 things had already been delivered, and the journey began immediately. But great were the queen's astonishment and hatred when she saw through the window that the young man was already preparing for the departure. So, very furious, she wished that everything terrible and threatening should occur to the young man, forcing him to come back and accept her love. Seeing that, at that moment, he was already riding his horse to start the trip, she did not hold back, and, even more enraged, shouted from the window, "If what you prefer is the self-destruction, then go immediately in search of a right encounter with death." But, at that moment, the horse was already flying down the road like a gust of wind, and, in the blink of an eye, they were already approaching the virgin forest, where the wild pig had its home. So the horse, stopping suddenly, said, "We have arrived. Now, get off me and enter the bush. There you will find a large swamp, where, at midnight, the wild pig usually goes to quench its thirst. Sit behind a tree and wait until it comes and, starting to drink, drinks until it stuffs itself. At this moment, you'll have to get out of your hiding place and, with a firm and accurate hand, stick the dagger directly into his heart. For, if you don't do that, you will have your body transformed into fragments. I will stay here waiting for you." The young woman then did what the horse had said and, finding the swamp, sat behind a tree not far from there, and waited, patiently, until midnight arrived and, with it, the referred animal. At the exact moment, the deep and heavy footsteps of the tremendous monster began to be heard closer and closer. So, the brave girl almost couldn't contain her panic. The wild pig was as big as a mountain. The hairs that covered his immense body were like huge thorns, hard and pointed. Its gigantic prey came out of his colossal and menacing mouth like trees rising out of a cave. With a horrendous grunt, that caused the earth to tremble and the trees to sway, the wild pig approached the swamp and began to drink. For a long time and continuously, it drank until there was not a single drop left. He then lay in the middle of the swamp to rest, and fell into the deepest sleep. Then, taking advantage of the opportunity, the young woman came out of her hiding place and approached the sleeping beast. By coming face to face with the terrible monster, her brave heart beat hard and she shuddered. But she quickly got a grip of herself, and stabbed it several times one after the other. However, 6 of her daggers had already been broken and, as she had not yet succeeded to reach the monster's heart, she was even losing hope. But taking out her 7th and last dagger, she gathered all her strengths and, in a single impulse, shoved it directly into the heart of the beast. In this moment, the black and steaming blood squirted like a water spring. So the brave young woman, letting it pour in the silver goblet, filled it up to the edge. Then, she made a deep cut to the animal's chest, withdrew the heart and let it fall into the gold net. Then, very happy, she got on her horse and took the road back to the castle, taking with her the requested objects. End of chapter 4.